All right, what's up, folks? Welcome back to the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel. We are here tonight for some DFS Golf, DraftKings, and FanDuel PGA picks and lineup advice for the PGA Championship 2021. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and I'm joined tonight by our PGA DFS expert on staff and our PGA DFS writer of the Daily Plug, Niromada. Niro, what's up, man?
Hey there, how are you? I'm good. I hope that everyone out here listening is as excited as I am. By the way, not possible for the PGA Championship starting tomorrow.
Absolutely. I know I'm just like you. I'm excited. For those of you in the chat, let me know about Nero's volume on his mic. I am known to mess up the production from time to time. So if someone in the chat could let me know how Niromada's audio is, give me a little analysis in the chat. We'll be here till about 10:30 p.m. Eastern, breaking down the PGA Championship from a DFS level, talking about the top plays, lineup strategies, and answering any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, go ahead and hop in the chat. As we go through the show, we will answer them there for you. Someone says your audio is a little high, which is surprising. So let me turn that down a bit on my end. There we go. All right, so Niro, let's get right into it. And for those of you who don't know, just for the record, Niromada has a high-profile job. We can't show his face. That's why he gets the witness protection angle here. So if you have questions about that, that's why that is. So Niro, talk to me about the PGA Championship 2021, this course, and just a high-level overview of the event.
Yeah, sure. First, you can find me on Twitter at Witness Protection Golf. Kidding. But as I've said before, the people I work with would laugh to hear you describe my job as a high profile job, but I'll take it and run with it. So, all right. So the PGA for this year, PGA, like the U.S. Open, like the Open Championship, rotates courses every year. So it's always at a different course. This year, it's the Ocean Course, Kiowa Island, right off South Carolina, like literally right on the Atlantic Ocean. Like fairway, some rough, a bunch of fescue grass, and then the beach, like literally within 15 yards of each other. So heavily influenced by wind, very difficult course. First hosted the Ryder Cup back in 1991. The War by the Shore, for those of you who are of a certain age, may remember that. Kind of kicked off the Ryder Cup and made it what it is. 78, 76, I think it plays from the scorecard, which will be the longest course that has ever been played for a major championship. The course itself will probably not play that long every day. There's a lot of different teeing options for the USGA. They will move the tees up and back depending on the wind. When they played the 2012 PGA Championship here, Rory won. He was 13 under, but second place was -5. So he won going away. But, there was only, 15 people under par or something like that. It's going to be very hard. And if the wind blows, it's a little unpredictable because you're so close to the coast. But if it does blow, your scores are going to get up there. That's why I wrote the stuff in the plug about preferring grinders, guys who play hard courses well, guys who enjoy playing hard courses because it's such a grind, guys who value par, who don't give away a lot of shots, good short games, even though the course is so long. Clearly, just to be clear, the longer players are going to have an advantage this week. Like, full stop. That's it. But I am not completely valuing that maybe as much as the market is because I believe that the raised up greens are going to be affected by the wind. They have a ton of runoff areas. Back in 2012, Justin Rose led the field in greens and regulation and barely got to 70%, which is super low for a tour event, which means that everybody playing is going to miss 40 to 50% of their greens, which means half the holes they're going to be chipping and putting from off the green trying to get up and down, which means that I'm unafraid to target some of the short game guys, even though it's such a long course. Okay, that was a lot of verbal vomit there on the course. Did I miss anything, Brian, or do you want me to talk about anything else with the course itself.
No, I think you nailed most of it, and I think the biggest question that we have to answer this week is, how much does the length play into our decision making and our player selection? And for those of you who are OccupyFantasy.com members, you're aware of the daily plug. You know of the very important Wednesday update that Niromada comes in and does. He looks at the Pinnacle line moves at PinnacleSports.com for the odds to win, how that changes throughout the week. Those line moves are very predictive and have produced tournament winners week after week. And Nero, you made a little note. I'm going to scroll back up here in the plug. You did make a little note about there are obviously a couple guys, Ron Peters, that have a lot of length from these Pinnacle line moves, this Wednesday update. But I mean, a vast majority of these guys kind of fall in line with what you just said. They get by with their irons and their scrambling ability. So the market, at least the market moves, are telling us that might be the key characteristics that we're looking for this week.
Yeah, and I noted in the plug that I did get the opening lines from Pinnacle on Sunday night, so that was pretty early. Pinnacle has crazy movement, as I put in the Discord channel. I wish I understood it better, but I just don't. I don't understand why there's such crazy movement some weeks, and other weeks there's just not a ton. This is one of those weeks with crazy movement. But even if you look, if you focus on the value chart more than the Steam moves chart, it's still, outside, again, as you mentioned, Brian, outside of Rom, Peters, Dean Burmester, who's a really long player from Europe, most of those folks on that value chart get it done with their irons. They get it done with their short game. And what a lot of those guys do on that chart is they don't make big mistakes. They don't throw shots away. They don't hit it off the planet out of bounds, because the thing about this course is the landing areas are actually kind of wide. Like most Pete Dye courses, it's visually deceiving off the tee. It looks narrow to your eyes, but when you get out there, it's a little wider. But there's then some rough, and then it's like marshland or really tall fescue grass, or like a waste area of sand and fescue grass. Like, it's all places you don't want to be if you're going to miss the fairway by more than 10 yards. So the really crooked guys, or guys that hit the occasional really crooked shot, are really going to get penalized on this course when they hit one of those crooked ones. And when you look through that list, it's a lot of what I would call neat and tidy players. Players who probably aren't going to do well in an event like last week. That's an absolute birdie fest, and you better be shooting 66 every round or you're losing ground to the field. And they're going to relish a chance like this, where par means something, and par is a very good score. They tend to play better in these types of events.
So you're telling me, if I'm following Shot Tracker tomorrow and we get one of those drives to unknown areas, it's bad news.
Yeah, that's not good. You're also going to see on Shot Tracker, if you're looking, you're going to see guys be just off the green, and then they hit it 30 feet away from the flag, and you're going to be like, did he shank it? And it's because the runoff areas around the green are really hard to get up and down from, and they make it, if you play golf, you know that trying to hit from a downhill lie to an uphill raised area green and then trying to get the ball to stop is very difficult. And there's going to be a lot of those kind of shots. So you'll see some really squirrely stuff on the Shot Tracker, even for the shots that are around the green. So be ready for that.
I cannot wait for it. So
yeah,
let's get into some player selection and some guys that we like for this tournament. Although we do have a fantastic comment in the chat, Nero. A lot of people talking about your expertise here, and Carl says this guy Niromada probably has a caddy when he takes a date mini golfing. So you can confirm or deny that.
Well, I grew up caddying, so I probably would have to say yes.
That's awesome. Thank you, Carl, for that comment. All right, so we have a few questions and a few player questions in the chat, Nero. And so I think we can just drive the conversation with this. Ken, who's on the staff, one of our writers, he's asking, Nero, to you, who is your most exposed golfer in your tournament lineups? And then he follows up, why is it Xander?
Why is it Xander? Here, I'll check right now. I'll tell you. I'd like to know, is he watching? Is he have my computer bugged or something? It is Xander.
Wow.
So I thought it would be close. I just wasn't sure if it would be exactly sure. By the way, I'm not completely done building yet. I do. For those of you who don't know, I do a little more hand building than Brian does. I let optimizers do some things, but I tend to do more of that. So I'm not quite finished, but yeah, right now it is Schauffele.
Good to know. And for those of you who listened to our interview with Jeff Sherman, the odds maker at the Superbook in Vegas, that's posted here on YouTube as well. He also likes Xander. So a lot of agreement and consensus on Xander this week. And Nero, his ownership shouldn't get too out of control, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that you'll find, obviously it'll vary by the contest, because I think Xander, when you look at like the Fantasy Labs grades, he's going to be graded as a pretty sharp play. So it's going to depend on the contest, but I think he'll be under 20, but above, somewhere in that 15 to 20% range. So, that's pretty good, but it's not crazy. There's nobody, I don't think anybody actually will be over 25%, which you'll see some weeks on the PGA Tour depending on the field. So, the ownership is fairly spread out. So as I wrote in the plug, I would have thought that Xander would be the number one owned player, but that honor looks like it's going to be a battle between Hovland and Answer for that, and Schauffele is not going to be in the in competition for that one.
Which is fine with me. Believe me, I'll take that discount.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
So we do have a couple more player questions, but I do think there's a more high-level question that should be answered this week. And Paradise in the chat actually asked the question. So I think this is what we should talk about next. And if you follow our Occupied content, if you read the lineup strategy section of the Daily Plug for PGA every single week, you'll know that we harp on this a lot. But the lineup construction for this week, Niromada, we've talked about in the past, stars and scrubs, balance builds, and I was just talking to you right before we went live about how generally in majors we do see a lot of stars and scrubs builds because we get so many viable options in the lower salary range than we would on a normal week. So Nero, talk to us about what you think the field is going to primarily build, what type of construction, and what you think the preferred build is.
Yeah, I think the field is going to generally build more balanced than not. I think you're going to see a lot of lineups from the field that start with Hovland at 9,300, with Schauffele at 9,600, and don't even get into the five-figure folks. And that's just because you can build some really great lineups from that mid 9 range to that mid to high 7 range. You can just feel like you've just made an all-star lineup of a bunch of players that in other weeks on the PGA Tour, when the field strength is lower, would all be in the upper 9s or in the 10K range. There's also the fact that you do have question marks amongst a lot of those golfers that are up in the upper price ranges. Bryson hasn't been playing that well. DJ's got some injury concerns outside of winning last week. Rory had been playing pretty poorly. Rory won 2 weeks ago. He had been playing pretty poorly before that. JT won at Sawgrass, but his last couple outings haven't been amazing. So, you have some questions up there, and I think most people are going to stay away from that. So I think that means that having a stars and scrubs type of build is going to give you a little bit of natural leverage on the field. I think you can do that in smaller field stuff, like let's say over, 500 entries, 1,000 entries, all the way up into the biggest, 200,000 entry contests, and you're going to get some leverage. And certainly going like double stars, so 2 guys over 10K, or maybe like a Rom and a Xander or Morikawa in those upper 9s. Leverage is the wrong way to describe it. I don't know that it automatically gives you leverage. What it automatically gives you is uniqueness. You're just not going to see a lot of other builds that, I'll say it this way, you will not see as many builds that follow that same style as you normally would, to your point, Brian, like in a PGA Tour event. I've got plenty of both constructions, to be clear, but I think in large field stuff, or any place where you're looking to be a little more unique, you're just not going to see a ton of those builds structured that way.
Which I was telling you before the show, which is crazy to me for a major to see that
Yep.
that dynamic in effect. So really interesting stuff. So let's see, the chat is flying here, so let's see if we can catch up. let's see. I guess the next question we would get is okay, so this is from Dot Bets, and it's about our model. What you see on screen here, if you're watching the stream, you see on screen here, it's our model that ranks every golfer, FanDuel and DraftKings. It's more long-term form, long-term ceiling for this particular week. So there's not going to be agreement between the betting markets and the model all the time. There's not going to be agreement between Niromada's picks and the model at all times. So Dot Bet's question is for you, Niromada, who are guys that rank highly in the model this week that you're not playing a ton of or you're not as high on, and who are guys at the bottom of the model or the model doesn't like as much that you will be playing a good amount of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be alone in this one. I'm not playing a ton of Patrick Cantlay. To be clear, he is someone I would normally say is a great leverage play because he is a golfer with an extremely high ceiling, and his style actually fits the course. He's just in terrible form, and I normally wouldn't mind that. Cantlay is a guy who like never misses cuts, and certainly never misses like 2 cuts in a row. But Cantlay has missed his last 4 cuts in a row, and the previous 4 events before that, he finished 15th, 3rd, 2nd, and 13th. So that just tells me that, like, I just don't know that is something going on there. Is he hurt? Is something wrong? From a game theory perspective, he's a great play because you'd say, here's a great golfer. Golfers can easily fall out of form and fall back into it from one week to the next. I just don't, my spidey sense tingles a little bit when I see that, and I'm just not going to have a ton of him for that reason. When I look at the other, let's see, up at the top, I don't have a ton of Morikawa for no good reason, really. I don't have too much Sergio. I'm just looking at the guys that are like 70 and above for the OF index. I don't have as much I don't have as much Connors as the field, that's for sure. And I don't have a ton of Bryson. At the bottom, the flip side of that question, got some Zadenhout, who's a 12 OF index. Let's see if there's anybody at the very bottom that I have some. Victor Perez. I've definitely have some Victor Perez, and he's a 0.6 OF index. I didn't know you went that low, Brian.
Pretty low.
Although I see Mackenzie Hughes has a 0.0 OF index, so I guess you can actually go lower. So I have those two, and they're well down. They're well down the list for the OF index.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, Cantlay is the guy that you just got to take the leap of faith, and it's really large field contest.
100%. 100%.
Okay, here's another good question. I know some of our listeners play FanDuel, some play DraftKings. Nero, I know you play both, and you've had success on both sites. So are there any nuances or differences when you're playing on FanDuel? We've talked about before how you can build more star-heavy teams because of the pricing, but beyond that, any other unique lineup things we need to consider?
Well, I mean, the pricing on FanDuel is soft in that it allows you to kind of build a little bit like whatever you want. So naturally, lineups that don't include those top end players are going to be, they're just not going to be as duplicated. Not that your exact lineup would be duplicated, but that style is just not really that duplicated on FanDuel. Like, there's most people on FanDuel build stars and scrubs. They do not build balanced. And I think that there's some good uniqueness to be found by building balance, especially for majors where you can have a ton of, really good players building balance. And yes, sure, you're not going to have DJ or Rom or JT, Rory, Bryson on your team, and a lot of other people will. And if one of those guys wins, you're probably not going to be loving your life come Sunday night. But it's a nice way to get unique. Certainly stars and scrubs is the easy way to build on FanDuel. And, to be clear, via the math, it's almost always the optimal way to build on FanDuel. But, you don't win giant GPP tournaments by being optimal.
It's very true. And I will say, I do have a big ticket on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And, earlier today I was messing around with both just to see what was possible. I said I'm going to build as close to the same lineup as I can on both sites for the same ticket. And I was able to get basically the same lineup except trade out a low to mid price player for a stud on FanDuel. So it goes
Yeah.
to show like how much easier it is to get those studs into your lineup. So all right, so Nero, I'm going to go back to the daily plug and look at the pinnacle steam moves that we've seen throughout the week. As we mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of these golfers end up in winning lineups. Many times the tournament winner is from this pinnacle steam move list. So I have the list up here. It's nice to see Matthew Fitzpatrick, at least in the early Wednesday update, top the field as the largest pinnacle steam move as you wrote him up in the daily plug. But if you could just take a couple minutes to point out some of these guys from the line moves that you really like, or you're not sure why the line moved against them either way.
Sure, yeah. Fitzpatrick and Simpson, by the way, are two guys that both their odds they got raised between the afternoon and tonight, and I updated that in the Discord channel. But I still will be playing tons of Fitzpatrick and Simpson. Let's see who else do I really like. You can tell the style I'm looking for. I really like Shane Lowry. I'll certainly have more Robert McIntyre than the field. Probably have more Stuart Sink than the field. I could guarantee you I'll have more Streelman than the field. And all the, yeah, right. I mean, all of those players, and Palmer too, although Palmer's just not quite this style. The rest of those guys are all in the style of really good short game, grinders, they get by on their accuracy more than their distance. They're usually long enough. And guys like Fitzpatrick and Lowry and Robert McIntyre, even Thomas Peters, Brendan Grace, certainly. They're all European, South African players. It's one of the reasons why I like Mark Leishman. I wrote him up in the plug. Same with Cam Smith and Cam Davis from Australia. Any of those guys that grew up playing windy coastal golf, I just think they're going to have an advantage. I don't know how big that advantage is going to be this week. I just think they're going to have an advantage and they're going to be more comfortable than guys who aren't used to playing in those types of conditions. It's just, the wind by the coast is a little bit heavier than wind elsewhere. And it's just a different style of golf. And all of those guys have just played, thousands of rounds in that style of golf, a little bit more than some of your other bigger names.
Yeah, for those of you listening, I was joking with Nero earlier today that you should have, you're using the lineup builder, you do max 2 players above 15%. You could also do max 1 North American in your lineup. Make sure you get as many European guys in there as you can.
Well, and to that point, like the European guys are absolutely underowned in this stuff every time. Like every major on U.S. soil, the European guys are underowned. Now they're still owned. Some of them are still even what you would call well owned, but they're underowned relative to their ceilings because most of the people playing these contests are American. They don't know these European golfers as well. They don't want to play them, so they don't play them.
Well, that leaves more ownership for us. We'll gladly scoop it up. Speaking of European players, a golfer that many might not know, and me and my short PGA existence, I didn't know him until this week. Higo coming over from Europe to play in this event. I think he's 7,400 on DraftKings. Someone's asking about him. Someone asked about him in the Discord as well. So Nero, maybe just like a very quick player profile of Higo.
Yeah, Garrick Higo, I believe he's South African, youngster, very good. He's finished first, 8th, and 4th in his last 3 European starts. By the way, it's pretty hard to get better than that. He's clearly, as I put in the Discord, like he's very good. He's got a high ceiling. He's probably going to be, he certainly profiles as being like a really good player as he gets older. My biggest concern with him is his first start in a major, so the stage is really big, and the courses that he's been playing have been super easy. So he's been shooting 63. So he won his last start, the Canary Islands. He shot 66, 63, 64, 64. Like he's not going to shoot anywhere near that before. And when I look at his record on tougher courses, it's not as good, not quite as good as it is on the easier courses. So the stage plus the course, I don't love it. And the thing is, usually a guy like Higo would come over here and on DK, he'd be like 6,400, 6,300, but he's priced up. He's 7,400 because of his recent success. And therefore, I'm just like, I don't know that I'm getting that much of a discount. He's the same price as, Lee Westwood, Brian Harmon, Charlie Hoffman, Max Homa, Keegan Bradley, all of those players, Matt Wallace, all right around there, who have been playing on bigger, tougher tour, on bigger, tougher courses, not quite getting, first, eighth, and fourth, but they've all had high finishes recently. And I think for the most part, I would rather play, those players than Higo in that price range.
Yeah.
Garrick Higo is $7,400 and Harris English is $7,200. Like,
I
how
know
much
that
sense that doesn't?
infuriates you.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, much different beast this week for Higo. Let's
Yes.
see. It is 10:30. We'll stick around for 5 more minutes. So if you guys have final questions, let's rapid fire them in. So Nero, let's pick up the pace here a little bit. Pete, you mentioned Victor Perez and Bez Bezudenhout as guys that you're playing. If you could just maybe give us a reason or two why you're playing both those guys.
Yeah, Victor Perez played well in the match play. Has some success on P-Dye courses. He's from France, but he's a European, plays a lot on the European tour, so he's used to playing the coastal windy venues. He hits it pretty long, and his short game is pretty decent. Like, that's a good combo here. But Bezuidenhout is how you say the other name. He's a short game specialist, very talented kid from South Africa. He's been playing in the bigger events well over here in the States. He's been playing mostly in the States for the last couple months. So that's why I like both those guys. The one nice nugget on Perez too, he's got JP Fitzgerald as his caddy. That was Rory McIlroy's caddy when Rory won here in 2012. So Fitzgerald clearly knows his way around the course, and that's only going to help Perez this week.
I will say, if Rory beat the field by 8 strokes, I probably could have been his caddy that day, and he would have been fine.
And damn right.
Speaking of caddies, I mean, I can't let the whole show go by without this caddy narrative. We talked about it before with golfers who have their coaches in town for the week and how successful they've been. Nero, there's one guy, at least that we know of, that has his coach in town this week. Who's that guy?
Good setup. Brandon Grace has his coach in town this week, I believe, for the first time all year, if the note that I read is correct. And I have no reason to think that it wouldn't be correct. The upside to Grace is he won at Hilton Head, another Pete Dye design in South Carolina, right up the street. Another course on the coast, heavily influenced by wind. He's got a very low ball flight. Last time he played on the coast in a very windy venue was the Puerto Rico Open back in February, and he won. He's just, this is a guy who also, what was the 2017 U.S. Open or something? One of those years when it was on the West Coast when DJ gave it away to Spieth, he was right there. Like, he's got the pedigree to play really well, and he just hits it really low. He's a great wind player. Obviously he's not the caliber, like, long term, as other players that are really good, but hey, he's $6,800, and in bursts he can get really close and win. He's not afraid of the big stage, and he's had success on big stages before.
And he's projected for like 1 or 2% ownership. So sign me up.
Yeah, he's not going to get above 5%. No chance. Not even close.
All right, final questions here. Nero, just one name. You're playing 3 max. You're playing 3 lineups on FanDuel. One player that you'd have in all 3 lineups.
Ooh, man, all 3 lineups. On FanDuel, let's go with Patrick Reed. Somebody who's down a little bit down the pricing down there, FanDuel, and so he doesn't kill you in terms of pricing. And obviously, if you read the plug, I really liked Reed this week, so I'll take Reed to answer that one.
Awesome. And this is the final question that'll get us out of here. It's a 4-part question. So Nero, this is what I'll do. It's guy. You have to name the winner of the event, your favorite play, a guy that you're fading, and a guy that you're playing that we should not. So we'll alternate back and forth. We'll start with who you think wins the event. So you give me your winner, I'll give my winner, and then we'll go on to the next part. So winner of the
Okay.
event.
Yeah, it's a shame that Snedeker is not playing because I would have an auto answer to the last question of who I'm playing and that you should not be playing. Winner of the event, I got to go with Schauffele. Like that's it. Got to go Schauffele.
I don't want to piggyback because I really do like Xander here too. I'll say Hovland. I'll say Hovland gets it done.
Yep.
He'll be my winner.
Very good. Very good one.
Okay, favorite play. That could mean whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah. I think my favorite play is Patrick Reed.
Favorite play, Patrick Reed. Okay, my favorite play, and again, it's going to be a guy that's in my core that I'm getting leverage on, and for me, it's going to be. I'm going to say Shane Lowry is my guy for my favorite
Yeah,
play.
like Lowry a lot this week.
Okay, fade. A guy that's 10% plus that either you're not playing at all or you're way under the field.
Corey Connors. I'm not fading him, but he's going to be close to 20 or something like that, and I'll be lucky to be at 10% of him. So
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I'm not playing a ton of Corey Connors, and I guess, yeah, that's really it in that range. Actually, I don't. I just did my exposure before we started the show. I don't have a ton of Abraham answers, so by definition, he's a fade for me. But I still think he's a pretty good play. So,
yep.
And then probably everyone's favorite question: a guy that you're playing, Nero, that we probably should not touch in any lineup.
Oh man, I admittedly I usually have a lot of these guys every week. I don't have as many of these type of players this week, just because if you read the plug, I've defaulted to wanting to just have more good players on my team this week because I think it's going to be that kind of week, that kind of grind, that kind of hard tournament. So I'm a little more reluctant this week than usual.
What a
to
concept!
kind of go.
What a concept, by the way. Just play the good players.
Yeah, right. I think probably the guy that would come to mind for me would be Gary Woodland. He's been so inconsistent lately. I like his style and his low ball flight and all those things for this thing. But outside of the last 2 weeks, man, he was really bad there for quite a while. So I'm playing him, but you probably should not.
And right above him in the pinnacle line moves list is my answer, EVR, who.
Oh yeah, definitely do not play Van Royen, but Brian will play him for sure.
He's in my exposures. You best believe it. The model's been on him for a while. We'll see if the model's picked up a lot of guys ahead of time. We'll see if EVR can ever kick it into gear. Someone else agrees. It's probably just because he's not American that he got to move here, and you could probably guarantee he hits in the ocean at least once. So. All right, that'll do it. I think. Let me see here. So Willie's following up in 3 max. If you had to lock one player, your answer was Patrick Reed on FanDuel. Would that be the same answer on DraftKings as well, Nero, or would you pick a different player to lock into your 3 max on DraftKings?
If I had to on DK, I would probably lock answer just for the freedom that it would give me then with the rest of the lineup, because then I could make a balanced lineup, I could make a stars and scrubs, and I could still have answer kind of anchoring that team, and I'd have a ton of price flexibility.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and it goes to show the differences in the prices between both sites.
Yes.
Dot Best in the chat says the lineup builder and the model keeps spitting out tons of EVR. I mean, it's every week, buddy. You gotta manually set a max exposure 5-10% if you're gonna play him, because he's going to be low owned, and we always try to get 2 low owned golfers in a tournament lineup, so he's naturally going to pop a lot. So. Nero, we're a little bit past our time here, but final thoughts from you on the event and from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. It should be a good one. It should be a good sweat. The cut is going to be over par for sure. I'd be very surprised if it was anywhere under par. So, point being, don't be too despondent if a guy that you're on heavy makes a double and a bogey and he's +3 after 6 holes on Thursday morning. There's plenty of time to get that back. I think the winning score is probably going to be somewhere in that 8 to 10 under range. I agree with Jeff Sherman. Which means it should be tight. It should be really hard for someone to run away from it, run away with it, which should make it a great watch, and hopefully a great sweat for a lot of Occupy members if we have some good guys in contention down the stretch.
Yes, absolutely. So that'll do it for the show. We appreciate everyone listening. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Just click subscribe right below the video. That way you're notified whenever we go live or upload any new videos. Speaking of that, check out the interview. We still have, 8-10 hours before lock. Check out the interview with Jeff Sherman of the Superbook, his thoughts from behind the counter on the event. Give us a thumbs up if you want us to continue to make more golf videos. That'll let us know to create this type of content more frequently. If you have any final questions, you can ask in the Discord channel. Click the join button right below the video. That'll get you access to OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. You can chat with Occupy staff and other OccupyFantasy.com members. The daily plug and Occupy model, which you've seen on screen, can be accessed at OccupyFantasy.com. Memberships as low as $7 per week. So for Niromada, I am Brian from Occupy Fantasy. Thanks for listening, and good luck this week.